Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how the government's approach to Brexit is causing two ventures into the space sector to highlight just how badly wrong that approach is. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, two bits of space-related investment I'd like to talk about here, but mainly this one about our Sat-Nav strategy. Now, as Boris Johnson has taken the view that Brexit means having nothing whatsoever to do with EU schemes, even though Brexiteers such as himself before the referendum argued that we would not be losing out on anything that we currently had at the time as members of the EU. But there you go, it's all changed, and we're pulling out of the world-class Galileo system that we've already paid £1.2 billion into. But that is peanuts compared to what I suspect we're about to piss away. Now, the government initially had the bright idea of trying to develop our own system. I mean, you've got the whole EU developing a system, which works very well, or it's going to, and then we're going to try and do that on our own. You know straight away, apart from anything else, apart from the fact you won't have the same access to all the expertise with the different space centres around Europe. But it's also going to cost you a lot of money because you're going to have to foot the whole bill. Remember, the investment into the satellite network needed for this doesn't get cheaper if there are fewer countries involved. You need a set number of satellites for the system to work. So one country on its own fronting the whole bill, straight away that's going to be a lot more costly. And of course, Brexit was supposed to be about saving us money, but never mind. I mean, we should have known anyway. It was always going to be really expensive. Boris Johnson, a man who was Mayor of London, showed how ready he was to waste a fortune in taxpayer money on projects that end up with nothing to show for it. Not overspending on projects, actually spending money on things that do not get used or things that never actually get built in the first place. But anyway, they've shelved that plan. They've gone, no, that would be too expensive. So now the plan is to buy into an existing satellite company and change its direction. To this effect, they have bought a 20% stake in what is now a UK-based company called OneWeb. And this was at the behest of Dominic Cummings. Now, the company does actually make satellites. I'm going to say that straight away. There is that. It is also genuinely based in the UK. So it's not like the situation where we changed our passports, taking the contract from a British company and giving it to ones based on the continent. And before I tear into it, I also have to acknowledge that this is a big improvement on giving, for example, a ferry contract to a company that had no ferries and had no experience in running ferries, a virus testing contract to an accountancy firm, and a massive contract for medical PPE to a firm that employs 16 people to catch rats. Now, as someone said yesterday, we should actually all be thankful that Dominic Cummings didn't spend all this money on satellites bought from a pet shop. However, that is where the good news ends. The thing is that there are two teeny-weeny problems with this investment, and that's saying nothing of the fact that it's unnecessary, as we were already part of a cracking system and could have remained part of that without an EU deal even. Problem one, the company declared bankruptcy in March in the US. Now, I'm sure there will be all sorts of genuine arguments for and against, but the bottom line is that this is a company that did not exactly manage its finances expertly. But I'll let business experts argue the toss over that one, because number two is right up my street as an astrophysicist. The company makes the wrong sort of satellites. Now, many people may imagine that a satellite is just an expensive metal bucket and you just throw it up into orbit, and surely it can be adapted to fit whatever hardware you may need, and that's not an unreasonable assumption. But no, So different satellites for different purposes need to be in specific orbits and not just to avoid crashing into each other, which is an important consideration in itself. And no, a satellite that's designed for one type of orbit can't just be shoved into another. For example, navigation satellites of the sort needed for Sat-Nav need an orbit about half that of a geostationary satellite, which would be used for communications. What we have bought are satellites designed to work in low orbit, which is good for spy satellites or for, internet services. Not at all useful for Sat-Nav. Essentially, what seems to have happened. Now, I did get asked on a comment somewhere, I think it might have been Patreon even, someone saying, is this company OneWeb Tory donors? Because that's your first thought, isn't it? If public money is spent on what seems to be a foolish venture, you just think to yourself, there's some Tory donors making out of this, isn't there? In this case, I strongly suspect not. It's a classic case of never ascribe to malice that which may be explained by incompetence. What's happened here is that OneWeb, a company that is in the financial shit, has gone to the Brexit backing government, Dominic Cummings directly indeed, because Dominic Cummings is the one who's driven this investment. Sure, that gives you confidence. What I reckon is this, what I absolutely believe has happened is this. You've got this company, it makes satellites. Its venture in the US has gone tits up. That's not doing the whole company any good at all. So they go to Dominic Cummings, who they know will be wanting the government to look like it's generating business for Britain, the nationalist agenda. And it's persuaded this guy that knows nothing about satellite networks that they can redesign their satellites. Like, do you do satellites for Sat-Nav? No, we don't. But we do satellites, we can adapt them. That's not a problem. And that's it. The bits of their company that haven't gone massively tits up are headquarters in the UK as well. So again, fits the nationalist agenda there. And Cummings has bought it, literally. And you can absolutely see this, can't you? Once Dominic Cummings sees the potential in the idea, he says, oh yeah, if this works, it's brilliant. Much like with Boris Johnson, doesn't do any research, doesn't actually think it through, doesn't get into contact with any of the experts that he has easy access to at universities around the country. No, they just go with it. Oh, this would be brilliant. Yeah, let's do that. And what this now means is that a company who have gone bust with satellite networks that they do have expertise and experience in now have to develop one which they don't have any experience of, and it won't draw widespread disapproval until it goes tits up, because most people will just think, well, it's just satellites at the end of the day, isn't it? Metal buckets floating around the Earth. How hard can it be to change the orbit that they float around in if that's the big deal? Now, I don't know if this project is completely doomed or if it will eventually come to fruition. What I do know is that it will end up costing us far more than Galileo, because how could it not? We're trying to develop a system on our own. And it's all very well saying, oh, but we're not developing it from scratch. We're using this company that's already got a network of satellites. The wrong satellites. So, and also another thing you can be absolutely certain of, it won't just cost more than Galileo would cost us, or indeed has cost us, but far more than is currently being projected as well. Absolutely guaranteed. And will be delayed on several occasions as well, because that's almost inevitable for any company that switches from doing one thing to something outside of its normal area of expertise, isn't it? And just consider what this could mean if it goes badly wrong. And I don't just mean, that we don't have a good sat-nav system for normal road use. Our military need access to precise navigation. Imagine launching a missile at the wrong location. Maybe even the wrong country. Now, I know there'll be many people that will think, well, there's no right country to launch a missile at. Fair enough, but still, there is wrong and there is wronger. But that is the orbital tale of woe. But just to finish off, there's a little bit of happier news on the space front. For some reason, being seized upon by Brexiteers as a good reason for Brexit. Oh, this just proves Brexit's a fantastic idea. When actually, it highlights just how costly Brexit is being and is going to be. So the ESA, the European Space Agency, has decided to use Leicester, which is the city which hosts the National Space Centre in the UK, as the place to build a new space research centre. Absolutely cracking news. And if anyone is in striking range of Leicester and has never visited the Space Centre, I would say it's worth a day out. It will naturally attract highly skilled workers for this venture. Very good thing for Leicester and Britain in general. But this has been seized on as evidence that Brexit Britain can still attract investment. But it's actually highlighting the opposite, because we're still a member of the European Space Agency. The European Space Agency is nothing to do with the EU. It's separate. Just because something's got the word European in it doesn't make it anything to do with the EU. The Conservatives should know this, of course, because the European Research Group is actually the furthest thing from a European research group. But we're still a member of the ESO, which is why we were in the running for this contract. We've won the contract. If anything, what it shows is that such investment is tied to international alliances. We've lost lots of EU centres in the UK. There were a number of them that have now moved out because we're no longer members, with the consequential loss of jobs and skill set leaving the country to work in the EU countries where these centres have now set up. If anything, what this is a reminder of just what we can be missing out around the rest of Britain in terms of investment by detaching ourselves from organisations that need to collaborate on an international level. Because how many groups, are we a member of that can award such contracts now? But there it is anyway. Nice to get a bit of space tech onto the channel every now and then. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.